Hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Red Pill Religion Freedom from Atheism Foundation broadcast. Max, and here at Red Pill Religion, one of the many things we say is that you want freedom from religion? Well, we want freedom from aggressive, anti religious goons who treat people like they're insane, stupid, or dangerous just because they believe in God. So please support our work on redpillreligion.com. Red Pill Religion, where in these days of social media censorship, you should always find us. We've been chased around multiple YouTube platforms. We have just hit 500 subscribers on this, our new platform, so we're going to celebrate tonight. But remember, if we go down, please find us always on redpillreligion.com. We're even looking at adding a chat server that will be exclusive to the redpillreligion.com platform, so that we don't have to worry about censorship on any platform. If you like the work we're doing and want to encourage our growth, please hit the PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar, or Bitcoin donations, or please buy some of our merchandise. We have good reports early on the t-shirts and the artwork. It's all on the sidebar there on redpillreligion.com. We appreciate your help. Now, please also find us on, especially on Gab and Dissenter. We have been suspended again from Facebook. We are still banned for life from Twitter. At least some of us are, some of us aren't. We are fine. I am just making it official. The dissenter.com and gab.com and the new Dissenter browser are highly recommended by us. No, we're not getting paid. So find us on those services. And in any case, tonight we are going to be looking at what's been new lately at the Freedom from Atheism Foundation. Before we do that, let's introduce everybody. First, we have Red Pill Religion co-founder Andrew Satellites. Say hi to everybody, Andrew.
Hey everyone, how are you tonight?
Pretty darn good. And also the our supreme apologist, Josh. Say hello to everybody, Josh.
Hey, good to be here.
I hear that you've been moving up in the world ranks in terms of most popular apologists or atheist challengers.
I have. I just defeated Tim Keller in a vote. There's an apologetic ranking vote on Twitter, and now I think I will be moving up to the 10th seed against people like J. Warner Wallace, J.P. Moreland, and William Lane Craig. And I'm hoping I do good against those guys.
He's a Calvinist too, and I make no secret of the fact. I can't help it. We might be more popular here on Red Pill Religion if we could do it, but we're more we are the Christianity we tend to embrace is the Orthodox kind. So seeing you take on a Calvinist like that was good for the soul. That's just what I'll see there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you keep going, man. God bless you. You're doing God's work. So, although I will also remind everybody here on Red Pill Religion and Freedom from Atheism, while of course, for no surprise, we're heavy with Christians, mostly Orthodox type practitioners, opposite of the faith Christians, but we do defend Orthodox Jews, yes, even Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Falun Gong, etc. But in any case, because we think that's the right proper Christian thing to do, frankly, is to defend anybody from lies and bullying. So, okay, I want to remind everybody the Freedom from Atheism Foundation is our friends. We are not the Freedom from Atheism Foundation. We are friends with them. They are all secret working professionals with, degrees as scientists, medical doctors, lawyers, that sort of thing, who are sick of atheist bullying in the world and atheist aggression and secular anti-religiosity. And they've been doing it for more than something like 10 years, and all very anonymously because they get so much threats and harassment, which is something that I can certainly attest to. I, having been doxxed and exposed repeatedly by the Atheist Network, continue to have people using my legal name, even though I ask them not to, and tell them that causes problems for my family. They don't care. They're happy to see my family annoyed. Publish stuff about me that's half-truths, don't give me a real opportunity to respond. This is how they play people, and this is why most of the Red Pill Religion team has been private all along, and why the entire Freedom from Atheism Foundation remains anonymous. It is ridiculous.
Well, and I'll just riffing off of that, they've attacked people like S.J. Thomason, who is extraordinarily gentle and polite.
I'll tell you, they went after S.J. Thomason, and I publicly shamed and humiliated some of them, who shall remain nameless, into going to her defense and getting some of the atheist heat off of her. But she still continually gets pilloried. It's just that now she's got a little protection. Other Christians on Twitter don't get anywhere near the level of protection she does. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Andrew, but it's like the atheist collective will not admit that it's got a bullying problem.
No.
Classic example.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't see anyone even at like the YouTuber level saying that no, it's inappropriate. Well, or that these things are evil and you should stop. Let alone someone at like the Dawkins level or Peter Hitchinson's level, and that sort of. It's curious. It's not enough to necessarily show that they're encouraging it, but they seem to definitely not dislike it.
They don't feel it's their responsibility to do anything to police it. Which, I'm sorry, when atheists say it's not my job to police what these other people are doing, I'm like, this puts the lie to your claim that people never engage in aggressive or bullying behavior in the name of atheism. When atheists aggressively bully people online, they're doing it on the name of atheism. Atheists should stop that. And B, if an atheist says it's not my responsibility to put a stop to this, then what every religious man, certainly every Christian, but every other should say is, so basically atheists want me to protect them and their rights, but they don't want to do anything to protect me and mine? Well, why do I care about atheists if they whine about persecution then? I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's true. If you go to Christian-apologist.com, I believe that is S.J. Thomason's blog. And yeah, she faced severe persecution. I shamed a couple of people from a couple of well-known circle of atheist ideologues. And so they went and got her a little protection. She's not even the most, I'm not going to insulting her, but she's a real simple, straightforward, not the most intellectually fierce, not the most argument-based at all. She's really pretty gentle and
she's gentle and straightforward. Me and Josh will tend to beat people over the head with logic, and SJ is much kinder than we are, and she got an incredible amount of harassment. So
it's the harassment that's so disturbing. I've gotten email samples. I posted it last week, so I'm not going to go through it again. But we've seen all kinds of samples of the emails these guys get. People really want to see Christians and other religious people hurt, and that gets really old. Here, for example, is one of the latest stories on Freedom from Atheism Foundation. To read the story, it says Christians are persecuted where they are the minority by three types of people: nationalists who consider Christians followers of an alien religion, militant atheists, and radical Islamists. What can be done to end Christian persecution? And this is true. I have heard some ideological atheists, and this was even something that appeared on the BBC, shockingly, suggesting that Christian persecution was caused primarily by other Christians. And it's a gross lie. The most frequent types are exactly what is posted here. Yes, Muslims do it, but some Christians are really dumb about this, because the reality is that some Muslims act to protect Christians. By comparison, ethnic nationalist forces, i.e. fascists, and Marxist communists, which are militant atheists, they often are, basically of the three groups most likely to attack Christians, two of them are secular, not religious. And in the case of Muslims, people get mad at me when I say this, but in places like Kurdistan and elsewhere, even in Egypt, we've seen it. Often Muslims are the ones standing up to defend Christians. That happens often enough that Christians ought to say thank you, because when we look at secular nationalist regimes and we look at militant atheist globalist regimes, there's nobody standing up for Christians at all when we're getting slaughtered.
That's right, and just riffing on that, the Muslims who stand up for the Christians actually tend to be the ones who take the religion the most seriously, and look back at what the Muslim legal tradition says, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean it's controversial, and it depends on which branch of Islam you're looking at. But a lot of them take very serious certain injunctions in the Hadith that they are utterly required to defend Christians and Jews. Now it has to be under the right circumstances, and that there's an inherent conflict there. But there's just no doubting. You look at what's happened in Iraq, for example. Peshmerga Muslims have been the only ones standing between Christians and ISIS. And, God bless them and thank them for that as a Christian. I can't think of any secular atheist regimes, however, whether they be nationalist or internationalist, who've ever done such a thing. I mean, really, I was just listening to this creepy podcast. It was creepy to me only because I didn't hate everybody on it, but I was listening to E. Michael Jones, the Catholic, talking to Richard Spencer, the white nationalist, Jim Goad, the sort of agnostic Southerner, white identitarian, and some other guy who was an obvious high IQ atheist leaning toward pagan. And it was interesting because all three people on the panel were like simply talking down to Dr. Jones and saying religion is antiquated and meaningless, and young people are throwing it away in droves. Christianity is obsolete, no longer useful. One of them was openly advocating. Let's see, Richard Spencer said I should bring this up sometime, but Richard Spencer, obviously no Christian, paganistic atheist, says, we should have a God that represents our people and our people's interests. And Jones is like, did you just say you need a God that represents our race and our people? And he said, yeah, that's what makes the most sense. And the other pagan guy started riffing and said, yeah, we're going to have religion at all. We should have religion like that. And I'm like, we've seen this movie before.
Yes, exactly.
We've seen this movie. I actually wanted Dr. Jones to start yelling at him.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, and the other thing they'll say is, oh, we should have this new religion kind of be based on evolution, and I'm like, oh, this sounds really familiar.
I should just try and pull that up and throw that in, but I don't know if it fits quite with the Freedom from Atheism Foundation, but it might. Now the problem is that it's like these people don't hear themselves. It's like, do you not think the Christians in the room can hear you talking about us like this? And like, do we get to answer anything you're saying? But yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's the truth. More Christians need to be aware of the specific persecution of Christians is often happening not from Muslims at all, and at least occasionally Muslims are the friends. And meanwhile, secular nationalists and globalist internationalists often kill us. And just like it mentions here on Freedom from Atheism, Christians, again, are the most persecuted religious group on the planet at this point. Not the Jews,
yeah,
not the Muslims, it's not the Falun Gong, it's not the Buddhists. Although, by the way, all of those groups have faced religious persecution, often from atheist regimes. But I'm sorry, what were you going to say there?
This is exactly right. The three key things Christians are persecuted by are by nationalists, radical atheists, and then these radical modernist Islamic ideologies, basically.
Yeah, I don't even want to tell people because they don't believe me, but there's all sorts of evidence for it. ISIS was funded by international global forces, including in part our own government. I mean, that's not even a conspiracy theory. You can go verify that. ISIS was actually funded by anti-Christian secular interests in large part. And it was often Muslims, the Peshmerga, standing between ISIS forces and Christians, including their churches. This is why I simply will not give in to the people who want me to go full Islamophobe. I don't like the word Islamophobe. I regret that I even just used that word. I won't go full anti-Islam. No, I know there are Muslims who are our friends and frankly, if you want someone to come to Christ, you need to present them a good, valid reason, and treating them like animals and making them guilty of things they're not is not the way of doing that.
Yeah, and we have to look at everyone in a high resolution way, right? And that's actually part of our moral obligation as Christians. But the key thing that we're talking about here is you actually have a moral obligation as a Christian to protect others, be they Christians or not Christians.
That's correct.
And that this is what we're calling out, is these people who are attacking and have this incredible anti-religious sentiment, and it's especially Christianity. To a lesser extent, other religions they seem to dislike as well. But it's hilarious because, just like you said, in the Western media, there's sort of the implication that these are by other Christians or sort of their own fault or something like that. I remember it was decades ago, the Archbishop of Canterbury made a presentation to Parliament actually talking about Christian persecution in the Middle East. And this parliamentarian in the United Kingdom said, well, that's what they get for staying there after and being colonialists, not realizing that the Christians there had been Christians for like 2,000 years and had been like converted by Paul and Peter.
Yeah. Literally the most persecuted Christians per capita right now are not Eastern Orthodox or Catholic or Anglican, although all of them are facing some of that. By a mile, it is the Coptics, the Assyrian or what is generally called the Oriental Orthodox communions, best known by the Coptics and the Ethiopian Orthodox, but also the Assyrian Orthodox. I mean, it's literally been historically some of the worst martyrdoms ever. And the European Union and Canada and the United States has preferentially, I don't know who's making all that noise. You guys, can you mute yourself if you're not talking? Okay. We have preferentially taken Muslims over Christians, even though we know in places like Europe and the United States and Canada, Egyptian or African Copt or Arabic Coptic populations would assimilate better into European society. They simply would. And so that's just another reason to look at what's going on in Europe as a tragedy.
Yeah, and I'll be explicit. One of the greatest frustrations I had with the Obama administration is when the Syrian civil war was occurring and sort of at the height during the Obama administration. They were taking in refugees, and literally not one Christian even made it to the refugee point that would have brought them to the West and to America. And the United States who was supposed to be in charge of not only that checkpoint, but the patrols and everything else outside of there. And our governments in the West have really done evil to these Christian communities in the Near East and in the Levant, as they've had these persecutions occur.
Yes, and go ahead.
Well, I wanted to bring up something that's called world systems theorists, and it was led by Emmanuel Waltonstein, Andre Gunder Frank, and some others that said it's because of colonialism why we deserve all this and why we should
colonialism is such a lie.
Yeah, it is a lie. And Rodney Stark, in his book How the West Won, the Neglected Story, the Triumph of Modernity, really exposes this world system theorist viewpoint.
Rodney Stark is amazing, and I'm going to try very hard to get an interview with him if it's possible. Professor Stark is professor of sociology out of Berkeley. Strange, out of Berkeley too, a place as lefty and Christian as that.
It's Baylor.
Oh, Baylor. I'm sorry, he's not with Berkeley. My mistake. I thought he was Berkeley at one point, but anyway. So, moving on to the next story, here we see that Dylan Roof, the one who massacred a bunch of Christians worshiping in the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, has been sentenced to death. And I don't know, I go back and forth on the death penalty. One of the things I find interesting is how hard the internet Illuminati, the Illuminate literati on all the big news channels and all the big atheist forums were quick to deny any atheist influence here. But It can easily be documented. He was a fierce anti-Christian who had absorbed a lot of ideological atheist propaganda. That's why he went and shot up a church. They wanted to make it a racial incident. I'm sure race was part of it too, but Dylan Roof had a thing with about Christians and wanted to kill Christians.
Well,
Say
and we. I'm being conscious that this is a low resolution understanding, but we just heard about that panel you saw of these people who were racist, or white identitarians and also atheists, and there's a little cluster of ideology there, right? That there are certain white identitarians who are also vehemently anti-theist atheists.
Yeah, and I'm tired of people thinking that all these these jokes, all these jokes that these so-called comedians say, like, but even people like Bill Maher and Seth MacFarlane and Penn Jillette and them, they're not funny anymore. I don't think them as funny anymore.
Yeah, they say things that make it culturally acceptable to really beat up on people of religion or that view Christianity as somehow, well, dare I say it, true. And we become numb to it as a culture. And that's why I think red pill religion, it's so important as we are fighting back finally in the Freedom from Atheism Foundation. These groups are very important, and we do hope other people join them because we need to fight together.
Amen.
Max, are you there?
I'm sorry, I was still muted for a second there, and I didn't realize I was. Yes, I completely agree, and that segues us to the next story that we just saw on Freedom from Atheism Foundation, which is that more people globally, including a majority in the United States, say that they desire to see religion play a more important role in their country. While atheists continue to fight against the majority of people's desire for greater religious freedom. I suspect many of them will, because I'm sorry, what they're saying here is true. If you look at the work of Dr. Rodney Stark, which we were just talking about, it's true. The religious population is growing, not shrinking. Even as anti-Christian sentiment has become more normal, what is still happening is that people are going on to pagan religions or adopting Islam or picking some other kind of spirituality. Now, as Orthodox type Christians, we should find that especially alarming, because the only type of Christianity is the kind that involves going to buildings and taking, part in a real sacramental community. In our view, for the most part. That's why read it yourself Bible Christians sometimes have trouble with us. But the fact is, you can't sit there and say you're neutral as an atheist and say we're going to exclude religion when a majority of people would like religion to be part of the political discourse. You're literally trying to shut people up.
And it's a really sort of fascinating conflation or sophistry, right? That once upon a time, at least in America, secular meant basically what all the religions of the nation could agree on, right? So it would be like me and Josh as Anglicans, you as a Roman Catholic, an Orthodox Jew, and so on and so forth. And we'd be like, okay, what do we...
Yeah, what do we get along with? What can
Yeah, what do we...
Other?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we all believe in God, right? Okay, we all believe in Moses and the prophets, and we all believe in, the inherent dignity of the human person. And okay, that's what secular means, is all the things that we agree on. And then we'd be like, well, what day should be the day of worship? And the Jews would say Saturday, and we would say Sunday. And then we'd come to a compromise and say, okay, how about both days off, right?
I've actually had friends of mine who are Orthodox Jews say, yeah, we kind of like argued for Saturday and got Sunday too. It's pretty like they're not supposed to have Sunday off, but they're grateful to have it because of us.
Yeah, exactly.
And whatever. That's what secular used to mean. And secular used to be whatever your legal obligations were to the larger society. That's all. And seculars are now become to mean, oh, I get to exclude points of view because
Yeah,
they're religious.
if I could just say something as it relates to science, our listeners, you probably heard something called methodological naturalism. Well, as the original discoverers and creators of the scientific method in the Enlightenment, all Christians, by the way, they differentiated between um, between how God normally acts, his natural creation, and God's special creation. So, methodological naturalism is not without metaphysics. It in fact presumes or presupposes the existence of God to make sure that we have a regularity of nature that can be discovered.
Methodological naturalism rests on Christian assumptions of the worldview. Oh, I see in the comments we have somebody who's been mocking us lately. You guys on Red Bean would be more respectable if you would leave my family name out. Then we might actually have fun and tease each other. As long as you keep putting my legal name out there and exposing my family, we're not going to acknowledge you. Just so you know. Okay, so that's just part of the harassment we get. People should stop using my family name. Thank you. Going on to the next story on freedom from atheism, and maybe we'll just stop it from there because it's going back a way. But it says, as they note here, with a link to a long article about it, atheists often falsely claim that Christianity promotes slavery. However, a Nobel Prize-winning former atheist scholar on American slavery proved that it was Christians who ended slavery. Why do so many atheists make false claims about Christianity? Yeah, I'm even a little annoyed. I mean, I know why he does, why he's trying to, build an audience and all that. But I was actually a little annoyed with James over at Modern Day Debate for even allowing a debate on the question of, does the Bible promote slavery? It's obscene that people would even try to debate the proposition. To me.
Well, yeah, but do you see it's all a sentimental and visceral reaction to religion rather than a careful analysis of what's actually in like the Bible, right?
There's an open anti-Christian propaganda campaign that is allowed by the social media companies. It's really virulent on Wikipedia, where I've been an editor for about 15 years now. I see it there every day. You see it in Google search results and what goes up, and people believe lies about the history of the Christian religion. I mean, slavery started dying in Rome when Christianity became the norm, and by the time Rome fell apart, slavery was more or less dead. And when it rose again in the 1400s, primarily from non-Christian traders from Africa, bringing slavery back into Spain, it was Christians who were the first to object, and it was the secular state that told the Christians to buzz off.
And I'll have to note that the Roman authorities, the Roman Catholic authorities, actually pushed against it pretty strongly.
They did, and that's kind of where the whole Inquisition got started, because there were Jewish and Muslims involved in this slave trade and other activity, pretending to be Catholic prelates and pretending to be Catholic while they were running institutions of the church that were also doing things like slave running. So the job of the Inquisition was to get rid of people like that.
I'll also note that by headcount and effort, the people working to end slavery now, including human trafficking and what's miscalled the white slave trade in the West, are Christians. Amnesty International does some, but most of the work is done by Christian churches and Christian organizations, and they literally call themselves abolitionists because that's what they are. They're aiming to abolish slavery, both in the legal forms that exist
Well,
in
And I've heard them try and say this and say that the slave owners in the Old South tried to justify slavery on Christian grounds. Some of them did. They did so very ineffectively because they could cherry pick certain verses, just like atheists do now, to try and justify it. But their fellow Christians called them on it constantly. And this is why, you go look at the Confederated States of America and all the people who ran the Confederacy. There were few to no prominent clergy involved in that. I mean, they were there, but there weren't very many. And you look at their constitutional documents and everything they said, they were not fighting for Christ in slavery.
Yeah, no, and the point I'll also make is the sophisticated thinkers in the South, and maybe I'm being overly sympathetic, basically looked at slavery in the same way that we might look at original sin, right?
Yes, they had this idea that it was the white man's burden, that the black slaves were so primitive that they couldn't handle anything but slavery, and that it was our obligation somehow to take care of them.
And that was, of course, from Rousseau. A lot of these Enlightenment thinkers, these so-called, freedom from religion thinkers, a lot of them supported slavery. It was the Christians, the abolitionists of the 17th and 18th and 19th century that did away with it, ultimately doing away with it.
And I'll throw a little bit. The majority of that movement came from Anglican clergy.
For what exactly? Movement for
abolitionism in
Anglican clergy. Yeah, no, that sounds right to my memory.
And it came from England. People like William Wilberforce in the House of Lords, given a great speech, tried for as long as he could, and right before he died, he finally got it passed, and it spread to America. Different authors discussed this, including Alvin Schmidt, how Christianity changed the world. So to end slavery, well, Christianity did it twice, and it's the only time that's ever happened in the history. Slavery has been endemic to the human condition. It took the body of Christ to end it, and where it exists in parts of the world, will eventually end it.
It's found in secular atheist regimes and yes, Muslim regimes. I'm not picking on them. I'm really not, because there are Muslims who are honorable on this issue. I'm just, to blame Christians for it is ridiculous. Islam probably has a higher tolerance for it than Christianity does, but that doesn't mean every Muslim's part of it either. Most of the time, slave owners are doing it for one thing and one thing only: the almighty dollar, or I'm sorry, almighty money, gold, whatever it is, and power and prestige. That's why they do it.
Yeah, and the two other things I'll note is, one, under the Mosaic Law, the mid-Atlantic slave trade, the African slave trade into America, would have been prohibited and the slave traders executed, because they either kidnapped people or kidnapped them, which was totally forbidden under Mosaic Law.
Under Mosaic Law, the concept of slavery was so different. I mean, amongst other things, under Mosaic Law, it's literally in the Bible, guys. If a slave ran away, you had to let him go. That was the rule, which is like, wow, what kind of slavery is that exactly? It also has a list of requirements of the master upon the slave who is free to leave at any time and has certain rights.
Yeah.
But what kind of slavery is that exactly? Chattel slavery? What? I'm sorry. What? Go ahead.
Well, from talking and debating this issue with atheists for the longest time, and I certainly do remember we debated, Andrew, we debated a few atheists, Dr. Josh, and I believe his name is Skylar, on a modern day debate. It seems that they don't understand something called progressive theology, how God reveals himself progressively through the historic, through history. I notice that atheists lack basic theological understanding.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Let me say this too, especially when you look at somebody like so-called Dr. Josh. It's actually an abuse of academia and an abuse of academic credentials and a besmirching of places like Johns Hopkins, that guys like that are running around flashing their PhD.
Well,
He should, no, let me finish, please. His PhD hasn't got any, just gives him no qualification at all to make the kind of pronouncements he does. None. He might as well have a PhD in particle physics or medieval French history.
Well,
it does not make him in any way respectable in this subject area.
What I want to say, when I do debate atheists and people on this subject, they may have a specialty or something that's really focused on a particular subject. But if you get them just a little bit out of their specialty, they're like novices. So I think as Christians, we need to have a broad understanding, a synoptic understanding where we can really integrate this and step back and see how God would accommodate himself through history. It seems like a progressive understanding would be the best explanation for God of infinite wisdom to communicate to his finite creatures with limited wisdom. But it seems to me that this understanding, this nuance, is simply escaping the simplistic minds of atheism.
Let me say again, well, first off, I will say that when you're dealing with some of these people, remember, nothing is escaping their minds. Many of them know they're lying. I guess I can't repeat this rant enough before people will hear it, but many of these people are con artists who know they lie. I would say two of them who are con artists who know they lie are the two we're talking about now that are trying to debate this. And let me repeat, it is so important that Christians start being skeptical of PhDs in general. Literally, a PhD in Assyriology gives you zero expert in Old Testament hermeneutics, interpretation, Hebrew, or anything else. Zero expertise. You have no, a man like that has no more expertise than the average guy with a divinity degree. None. It's totally irrelevant.
So, and I might be misremembering the story, but there was a case of someone who won the Nobel Prize in chemistry dying of a vitamin C overdose because he was trying to use it to cure some disease he had rather than going through the more mainstream medical practice.
I've never heard of anybody dying of that, but I can believe something like that was true.
Yeah, and I guess the point is that oftentimes having a PhD or being a discoverer doesn't mean that you have a broad intelligence, but a very narrow one, and that you've focused it like a laser onto one tiny thing.
It is an actual outrage. This used to be understood by everybody. A psychologist opining on medicine or astronomy would be considered a loon and to be completely irresponsible to mention that he has a PhD in psychology if he's opining on astronomy or physics or biology, because he has no expertise in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is actually outrageous when they do this. It's just, you name the prominent PhDs running around waving, atheist PhDs running around waving their PhDs. In more than 9 out of 10 cases, you're going to find their PhD has nothing that qualifies them to say the things they're saying at all, but people still call them doctor this or doctor that. It used to be the protocol, just so you know, that you never called anybody doctor anything unless he was a medical doctor, because that was a special case, or he was speaking in his field. So if we were asking a physicist a question about physics, we would say Dr. Smith, or if we were asking a psychologist his professional opinion, we'd say Dr. Zeke, or whatever it is. But if it were anything outside of his field, it would be inappropriate of him to even let you call him doctor. if he was
Yeah.
a philosophical or theological or biological question, because his PhD doesn't apply. Another one, by the way, is that prominent physicist with a decades out of date PhD, Crocoduck, who makes videos on evolutionary biology, a subject he is in no way qualified to talk on, and actually gives bad information on.
I was going to debate him, and I still hope to debate him on, I believe our topic was going to be cosmogony, teleology, and God, and the existence of God. But be that as it may, you're quite right about a lot of these PhDs. When you get them just a bit out of their field, they're newbies in a lot of areas. And I've noticed, especially when you get them to the fields of philosophy or history, and me and Andrew focus on this, that they're not in their fields. They're usually inept or usually novices.
Yep. So we got Stefan Wolf came on to say congrats on 500 subscribers. And yeah, let's kind of start wrapping up and end on that note. We've hit 500 subscribers. This is our third channel. At some point soon, we really are going to do it this time. We're going to carry through. We're waiting for the team to give us a few recommendations, but we're going to look at doing a fundraiser to invest in some podcasting software so that we can be independent of the censorship that is so common on social media. I can tell you one thing that is happening is that the pushback against the global order that has been so censorious is coming fiercely. This is why we're on, I am strongly pushing everybody on the team and everybody who listens to get on Dissenter and Gab, because these appear to be real free speech platforms for now. We like MeWe so far too. Mine's still seems semi-okay. The big social media platforms are bad and they're getting worse. They're banning more and more and more people. We're hoping to do a fundraiser with the Freedom from Atheism Foundation folks who say they want to support us if we do this. If we can get some kind of independent, a fundraiser and some kind of independent platform going, they're going to support us because they've seen what we've gone through. They've even seen when I have embarrassed myself a few times, swearing too much, losing my temper, getting silly, which has happened a few times. But, they've stood by us and wanted to just work with us more because they see what we do. The Organized Atheist Network means to hurt people. That's what they do. And they don't even just try to hurt Christians. They try to hurt everybody who won't be atheist with them. And we're here to push them back, and we're not going to go away. It's simply not going to happen. Even if I quit or get taken out, this project continues.
We do have some good news. We are almost, guys, we're almost to 600 subscribers.
Let's see if we can get that to 1,000. Anybody listening who can help us reach 1,000 subscribers, that would be cool. We will probably still leave this channel unmonetized and mostly in Creative Commons distribution just to avoid the censorship, which means the only way we make money is if we get donations. And you can give us donations on redpillreligion.com. We appreciate them very much. Or check the low bar or the comments on here. We really could use you. Subscribestar and a few others are there. Bitcoin, it's all very much appreciated. Either you guys got closing thoughts?
Once again, we pray for all our enemies and wish that God does the very best for them, and that they repent of their evils just as we repent of our evils. So that's my closing thought.
Okay, you got anything finally, Josh?
Well, let me just agree. We pray for y'all, but I want to make an open challenge, and this goes to any of the professional atheists out there. We are here, and we are willing to defend our beliefs in debate and academic discussion. If you want to come on Red Pill and challenge us, we're here and we're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we had one guy whose name rhymes with ditch try to attack us recently. Unfortunately, he was doing the thing where he uses my family name, so he gets no acknowledgement from us. Guys, people like that who will stop using people's family names and doxing people, they can come on. And in fact, I would otherwise invite that guy to come on.
Did you say his name was Dick?
Ditch. It rhymes with
Okay.
ditch or switch. or bitch or snitch, nasty little snitch. I'm just teasing, but seriously, you know, he stops
He's a coward.
family names. He can even come on here and try and defend his. He made a bunch of ludicrous claims he will not be able to back up on near-death experience. And furthermore, if he were a real researcher, he would be asking the Ender project people to answer his challenges. He doesn't get to declare something not science because he finds something he can nitpick. The near-death experience is rock solid science, and it is absolutely evidence, and he will have to live with it. But in any case, he can come on and do that if he stops with the personal attacks. Everybody do us a favor, please check out Freedom from Atheism Foundation on Facebook. Go give it a like, give it a follow. It's actually more popular than the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Let's see if we can boost them up too. Watch our future plans for fundraisers. Watch this channel, give us a subscribe, give us a like, hit that bell, tell your friends or enemies, and God bless everybody.